Listen up, Garen mains. Don't ever come down to my stream or my YouTube ever again and say that Riven is broken, because your champion, your Garen, has just got buffed, which means that you can no longer cry that you lose Garen against Riven. Don't ever do that again because your champion has just got buffed. Guys, welcome to a new video. In this video today, guys, we're going to be taking a look at the patch 9.7 notes, and we're going to see if Riven is better than before. So I've already been taking a look at some of the changes, and as it looks so far, Riven has even become better within this patch. I'll explain why. But first of all, let's go and talk about Kale. So Kale is getting a flat out early game nerf as well as a nerf within the late game. So the Riven against Kale matchup was already pretty easy. I am going to make a matchup guide for Kale later on. That is on the way. But anyway, she is getting a very hard nerf. So her early game is going to be weaker, and her late game, she actually needs to buy items now in order to scale, because within the last patch, she just needed to take levels and eventually get level 16 and then become super overpowered. But that is not exactly the case anymore. She needs items right now, so that's also very good. But anyway, once again, for the people that have trouble in the Riven against Kale matchup, I am going to make a matchup guide for this later on, so don't worry about that. Now this is where the good news comes in. Urgot is finally getting nerfed, which means that Urgot is going to be less bans, which also means that Riven is going to be banned more. But anyway, for Riven this is pretty good because Urgot was just a very big pain. And they're fixing that right now. So basically, the passive damage decreased in the late game, the E cooldown increased in the early game, and the cost has increased. And the R damage has decreased, which this is very huge. Just taking a look at the numbers, this is very huge. So all in all, pretty good. This makes Riven actually possible to play again when playing in the Urgot matchup, because so far that was not possible. As for Azir, Azir is getting buffed, which means that we might see Azir again, but I don't think he's going to be played in the top lane at all. And if Azir is being played in the top lane, then I don't think that Riven is going to have any trouble against Azir at all. So I don't really think that this is going to matter a lot for us Riven mains. But anyway, pretty interesting. They're trying to get Azir back into the game. Hopefully it will. It's a pretty awesome champion, but can be very frustrating to play against sometimes. As for Chogath, they are decreasing the cooldown from the Q, so that means that we might get to see Chogath a lot more from now. And Riven against Chogath is kinda really annoying matchup. Eventually, if Chogath gets his first item, he might always go out of control. But anyway, the matchup is not too bad. In the early game, Riven can win pretty easily, but not very happy with the Chogath change right here, as I don't really want to play against Chogath in lane. But it seems pretty nice. I think the Chogaths, I think they are really happy with this change right here. As for Dr. Mundo, the Q damage has been increased and his E attack damage has been increased as well. They are trying to get Dr. Mundo back into the game because this champion is obviously, it hasn't been played in the last 5 years. So they are really trying to get it back. And as for the Riven against Mundo is not really that hard. You pretty much shove in the lane and you try to roam afterwards. It's not really that difficult of a matchup. If his healing gets out of control, you can buy items for that too. So Mundo is not really a problem for Riven. As for Garen, they are buffing the W, so he gets to be a little stronger throughout the game. I'm not really sure why Riot even decides to buff Garen at this point, but I guess people can no longer cry about Garen buffs. He actually gets a buff. As for the Garen matchup, I have already made a video on how you can play Riven against a Garen. So if you don't know how to play against Garen, then make sure you check out that video. As for Leona, they are buffering her E so she gets to get the E sooner again. This is a pretty good change because we haven't seen Leona that much in ranked games anymore, because there's just better supports at the moment. But this is a very good change. This might make her come back into the game because her cooldowns are pretty high, not gonna lie. For the next change that we have is Lissandra. Her Q cooldown has been increased. I think this is all really obvious why they are doing this, because literally if you pick Lissandra right now, you could literally just go and push the lane all the time and then use that to roam around. It was so easy for Lissandra to wave clear the lane in the laning phase. This is what made her such a broken champion in the last patch, but they seem to fix that right now, so that's pretty good. This will also mean that we don't get to see Lissandras in the top lane anymore, which is also very good for Riven. The next change we got is Morgana. They are nerfing her damage throughout the game with the W, and I think this is very good because I don't like Morgana. I don't like the infinite stuns, so I'm honestly just really happy with this Morgana change. Pike's Q cooldown has been decreased in the early game, and the E stun duration has been increased. We're giving Pike all in more power. In my opinion, Pike was fine the way it is. I don't think he needed this, but anyway, I want to see where this is going. I think it's going to be pretty strong right now. Rumble's W movement speed has been increased and the R cooldown has been decreased. So just like Mundo, they are really trying to get Rumble back into the game. Because a few years ago, this champion used to exist. People actually played this champion, but then they did some nerfs and some changes which made Rumble disappear forever. So I think they're really trying to recover that. They're really trying to bring this champion back into the game. In my opinion, Rumble deserves those buffs, but Rumble is really annoying to play against if you play Riven. So I'm not sure about this, but as for the Silas change, they are nerfing the health of the region. Also, the W damage has been decreased and the E cooldown has been increased in the early game. So not gonna lie, if you play the Riven against Silas matchup, if you play against a really good Silas, it's really hard to actually take him down. But because of the cooldown change, he's actually getting a big weakness now. So he only needed like 12 seconds in order to get his E back. It's now actually 18 seconds. Also, the W damage has been decreased and the health regen, so this is pretty huge for Silas. I think the Riven against Silas matchup is going to be really easy now, especially because of all those nerfs with the damage. But most importantly, the E has been decreased in terms of cooldown, so that's pretty good for Riven. This is going to make the matchup a lot easier for Riven. Now, as for the items, we don't really care that much because we are Riven mains and we play in the top lane, so we don't really care about the jungle item. We also don't really care about the Dark Seal because we don't ever build that. And we don't ever build Wit's End, so I don't really care much about that. As for the runes, we currently don't really ever go into this page, but it's very interesting what they are doing to the Eye Collection and the Ghost Poro and the Zombie Ward. I've gone through some of the changes and I would always go and take Ghost Poro myself. I think this is one of the best to take right now if you are going into this page. I think Ghost Poro is still one of the best choices because if your ward expires now, there's going to be a Poro right there, and it's obviously vision is very important in this game. The Cutdown is getting a change, it's because it's getting a slight buff which is going to make this one actually usable. Nobody really used Cutdown. Maybe we get to use Cutdown now if we play against like a bunch of tanks. I'm not very sure if Cutdown is good right now or not. We gotta test it in a real game, but the numbers, they look really good. As for Demolish, we don't really ever get to pick Demolish if we play Riven, so this is not really that interesting for us, but it is a really nice change, especially for the top lane. Overgrowth is getting a nice little buff. This is really good if you play Riven with Grasp of the Undying or the Aftershock, because then you're actually gonna go into this page and you're gonna use this. Predator, we don't really care much about that because as Riven mains, we don't really ever get to pick that. Also, Ultimate Hunter, we don't really care about that either. As for the practice stool and Aram and the Mac client and all of that other stuff, I don't really care much about that. But anyway, back to the question right now. Is Riven better than before? And yes, she is, because first of all, one of her counters has been nerfed. Silas has been nerfed as well. And Rumble has been buffed, which is not very good. But anyway, all in all, a lot of the counters of Riven has been nerfed, so that is pretty good. And best out of all, Overgrowth has been buffed, and this is also pretty huge for Riven. Because if you go in the Aftershock page or you go in Grasp of the Undying page, you can actually go and take this now. It's pretty good, so I'm gonna test it out myself too. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you are looking for a high elo Riven main to go and watch, make sure you come and check out my stream. Also, if you are looking for a nice and friendly Discord community, make sure you join my Discord, guys. So I guess I'll see you guys in my next video, man. Peace.